Welcome to Godless and Grounded.
When we look up at the stars or face a moment of deep personal crisis, it is natural to ask why we are here and if there is something bigger than us. For the vast majority of human history, the answer has been God. But if we pull back the curtain and look at history, psychology, and biology, a more grounded question emerges. Did God create us, or did we create God? To understand who invented God, we have to travel back to a time before temples and holy books, back to the very dawn of the human mind. The first clue lies in how our brains are wired to survive. Imagine you are an early human walking through tall grass. You hear a rustle. If you assume it is just the wind and you are wrong, a predator eats you. But if you assume it is a hungry leopard and you run away, you live, even if it was just the wind. Evolution favored the paranoid. We developed what psychologists call a hyperactive agency detection device. This is a fancy way of saying we are hardwired to see intentions and agents everywhere, even in inanimate objects. When the lightning struck or the volcano erupted, our ancestors didn't have the tools of physics to explain it. Their brains naturally filled in the blanks by assuming an agent or a someone was behind the power. This was the first step toward the invention of gods. As human groups got bigger, the nature of these gods changed. This created a massive problem for social cooperation. How do you trust someone you don't know? This is where the big God concept comes in. Societies that imagined a powerful, all-seeing deity who punished bad behavior and rewarded good behavior tended to be more stable. This God acted like a social glue. If both you and a stranger believe that a divine judge is watching, you are more likely to trade fairly and follow the rules. In this sense, God wasn't just a psychological mistake. God was a brilliant social technology. We invented God. We also have to look at the historical timeline of how specific ideas of God evolved. It is a common mistake to think that the monotheistic God people talk about today, the all-powerful, all-knowing creator, simply appeared out of nowhere. If you look at the history of the ancient Near East, you can see the fingerprints of human editing. The archaeological record and even early layers of religious texts show they were originally polytheists who believed in many gods, similar to their neighbors the Canaanites. Over centuries, for political and nationalistic reasons, they elevated one specific war god above the others. Eventually, the other gods were demoted to angels or demons, and the one remaining god was reimagined as the only creator of the universe. We can literally trace the merger and acquisition process of how different local deities were fused together to create the modern concept of God. The invention of God also serves a very deep emotional purpose. We are the only animals on Earth who are fully aware of our own mortality. We know that we, and everyone we love, will eventually die. That is a heavy burden to carry. Religions and the concept of a divine father figure provide a psychological buffer against the terror of death. It is much easier to sleep at night if you believe that death is just a doorway and that there is a powerful entity who has a plan for your life. We invented a cosmic parent to replace our earthly parents who couldn't protect us from the harshness of the world. This is why so many descriptions of God use parental language. It's a projection of our need for safety and meaning in a universe that often feels indifferent to us. If you look at the gods of the Vikings, they were warriors because the Vikings were a warrior culture. If you look at the gods of the ancient Greeks, they were impulsive and lustful, reflecting the human drama of the Mediterranean. When a society changes its values, its God changes too. A few hundred years ago, most people believed God wanted them to burn heretics at the stake. Today, most people believe God is about love and inclusion. If God were an objective, unchanging being, his message wouldn't shift so perfectly with human fashion and political trends. The fact that God's will always seems to align with the current goals of his followers is a strong sign that the followers are the ones doing the writing. Logic also plays a huge role in how we've refined the invention over time. As humans got better at philosophy, we started spotting holes in our own stories. This led to theodicy, which is the attempt to explain why a good God allows suffering. Instead of admitting the God might not exist, we invented complex logical loops to justify the silence of the divine. We created concepts like free will, or mysterious ways, to protect the idea of God from the reality of a world filled with natural disasters and diseases. Ultimately, saying God was invented isn't necessarily an insult to human intelligence. In fact, it's a testament to our creativity and our drive to survive. We are a meaning-making species. We hate gaps in our knowledge, so we fill them with stories. We hate being alone, so we imagine a companion. We hate injustice, so we imagine a final courtroom in the sky. When we ask who invented God, the answer is all of us. We built God out of our fears, our hopes, our need for order, and our incredible ability to dream. Understanding this doesn't make the world less beautiful. It actually makes our history more impressive because it shows how far we've come using nothing but our own minds to navigate the dark. When we look deeper into the dust of the earth, we find the physical evidence of God's evolution. In ancient sites throughout the Levant, archaeologists have uncovered small clay figurines of a goddess named Asherah. For a long time, traditional history ignored these, but we now know she was widely worshipped as the consort or wife of the early Hebrew god. It wasn't until a specific political movement in the 7th century BCE that the religious elite decided to scrub her from the records to centralize power. They went through the texts in ancient sites to destroy the evidence of a divine couple, pushing a strictly solo male deity instead. This wasn't a divine revelation from the clouds. It was a deliberate, earthly campaign of branding and censorship. It proves that the one true God concept was a late-stage edit, a political tool used to unite a fractured people under a single national identity and a single king. This process of invention through editing is even more obvious when you compare different ancient myths side by side. Long before the Book of Genesis was written, the Sumerians and Babylonians had their own epic stories about a great flood and a hero who saved animals on a boat. The early authors of the Bible didn't experience a new supernatural event. They took the existing pop culture stories of their time and updated the characters to fit their new national god. They swapped out a chaotic group of squabbling gods for one disciplined, moralistic deity. This is exactly how humans create stories today. We take tropes and themes that already exist, and we remix them for a new audience. If you track these stories geographically and chronologically, you can see the God idea migrating across borders, changing its outfit and its accent to suit the people who moved it. Even the way we think about the soul and the afterlife was a slow-motion invention. In the earliest parts of the Hebrew Bible, there is no real heaven or hell. There is only Sheol, a silent, shadowy place where everyone goes, regardless of how they lived. The ideas of eternal reward and fiery punishment only gained traction after human cultures interacted with Greek and Persian philosophies. People wanted justice that they weren't getting in the real world, so they upgraded their god to include a system of post-mortem accountability. We essentially invented a celestial court system because our earthly ones were failing. When you see how these concepts were bolted onto religion centuries after the religion started, it becomes clear that God is a living document, constantly being revised and expanded by human authors to address the anxieties of their time. The invention of a singular, perfect God created a massive logical trap. If God is all-powerful and all-good, where does evil come from? To solve this, humans had to invent a cosmic scapegoat. In early religious history, the figure we now call Satan wasn't a rebel king of hell. The word Satan was simply a title meaning the accuser, or the adversary, a sort of divine prosecutor working for God. It was only when human societies were influenced by Persian dualism, the idea of a world caught in a war between a pure light and a dark shadow, that the devil was promoted to a full-time villain. This was a necessary invention because it protected the brand of a good God. By shifting all the cruelty, disease, and disaster onto a fallen angel, humans were able to keep their idea of a loving father intact. We built a basement for our universe so we could keep the upstairs looking clean. This entire process of inventing and refining God shows us that religion is essentially a mirror. For thousands of years we have been staring into the dark and seeing our own reflection, but we mistook it for a stranger. When we needed war, we invented a God of hosts. When we needed peace, we invented a God of mercy. When we needed to justify slavery or conquest, we found a divine mandate to do so. The God of the 21st century is just the latest version in a long line of human prototypes, designed to fit our modern values of human rights and equality. The fact that God's moral compass always seems to follow the human compass with a delay of about 50 years is the clearest evidence we have that the Creator didn't make the people, but the people have been very busy making the Creator. When we talk about the invention of God, we have to look inside our own skulls. Neuroscience has shown us that the human brain has specific regions that, when stimulated, create what people describe as a mystical experience. There is a part of the brain called the parietal lobe that helps us navigate space and gives us a sense of where our body ends and the rest of the world begins. When people engage in deep prayer or meditation, the activity in this area drops significantly. This causes the boundary of the self to dissolve, leading to a feeling of oneness with the universe or a sense of being in the presence of something infinite. Our ancestors didn't have brain scans, so they interpreted this internal biological glitch as an external spiritual reality. We also have to consider the role of mirror neurons and our social nature. Humans are social animals who are constantly trying to understand what others are thinking. We have a theory of mind that allows us to simulate the perspectives of our friends, enemies, and family members. It is very easy for this simulation software to keep running even when no one is there. This is why people talk to their dead relatives or feel like a higher power is listening to their thoughts. We are essentially using the same neural pathways we use to talk to our neighbors to talk to a concept of our own making. God is the ultimate imaginary friend for adults. Then there is the evolution of language itself. Labels are powerful tools. Once we gave a name to the unknown, we started treating that name as if it were a physical object. This is a logical fallacy called reification. We invented the word God as a bucket to hold everything we couldn't explain. Over time, we forgot that we were the ones who built the bucket. We started to think the bucket was more real than the things inside it. Even our sense of morality, which many people claim comes from God, has been shown to have deep evolutionary roots. We see moral behavior in chimpanzees, bonobos, and even rats. They don't have Bibles or priests. They have biological instincts that favor cooperation. We took these natural, biological impulses and outsourced them to a divine authority. By saying, God says don't steal, we made the rules of the tribe seem absolute and cosmic rather than just practical. It was a brilliant way to enforce the social contract, but it wasn't a message from heaven. It was a script written by our DNA and edited by our cultures. We also have to look at the God of the gaps phenomenon. Throughout history, as science moves forward, God is forced to retreat. We used to think God moved the sun. Now we know about gravity. We used to think God created humans from clay. Now we understand evolution. Every time we shine a light into a dark corner of our ignorance, the divine explanation disappears. God has become a shrinking pocket of scientific mystery. Today, some people point to the Big Bang or the complexities of consciousness as proof of God. But these are just the latest gaps. Based on the track record of human history, these gaps will eventually be filled with facts and the invention will have to move again. The story of God's invention is the story of human progress. It shows how we used our imagination to survive a dangerous world, to unite our tribes, and to comfort ourselves in the face of death. We don't need to be ashamed of this invention. It was a necessary step in our development. But as we grow up as a species, we can finally put away the training wheels. We can appreciate the beauty of the stars without needing a story about who lit them. We can be good to one another because it's the right way to live, not because we're afraid of a cosmic ghost. We are the authors of our own meaning, and that is a much more powerful story than anything we could have inherited from the ancient past. One of the most common fears people have when they step away from the idea of a creator is that the world will suddenly feel cold or empty. But if we realize that we were the ones who projected beauty and meaning onto God in the first place, we see that those qualities actually belong to us. We don't lose meaning when we lose the invention. We simply reclaim it. We can also find a new kind of spirituality in the literal truth of our origins. Instead of being made from clay by a deity, we are made of atoms that were forged inside the hearts of dying stars. When those stars exploded, they scattered the building blocks of life across the cosmos, and over billions of years, those pieces came together to form you. This isn't a metaphor. It's a hard fact of physics. We are literally connected to the rest of the universe at the most basic level. This cosmic perspective provides a sense of belonging and scale that rivals any religious experience. You are not a stranger in a foreign world created by a distant king. You are a natural growth of the universe itself, as much a part of it as a mountain or a galaxy. Community is another area where we can thrive without the invention of God. For a long time, the church or the temple was the only place to find a tribe. but we are finding new ways to gather around shared values, science, art, and the simple desire to help one another. The kindness we show to a neighbor doesn't require a divine command to be real. In fact, doing something good simply because you care about another human being, without the hope of a heavenly reward or the fear of a hellish punishment, is a much higher form of morality. It's a human-grown goodness that relies on empathy and reason rather than obedience. The sense of wonder that used to be reserved for miracles can now be found in the everyday workings of nature. When you understand how a single cell divides or how light bends through a raindrop to create a rainbow, the world doesn't become less magical. It becomes more transparently beautiful. Science doesn't strip the world of its mystery. It just replaces small, human-centered mysteries with much larger, grander ones. We are living in a time where we can finally trade fairy tales for the spectacular truth. This shift also changes how we handle the big questions, like suffering and death. When we stop trying to find a reason or a plan behind a natural disaster or a disease, we stop wasting energy being angry at a silent God. Instead, we can focus all our efforts on the things we can actually control: medicine, engineering, and mutual support. Accepting that the universe is indifferent to our plight isn't depressing. It's empowering. It means that we are the ones responsible for making the world a kinder place. If there is going to be justice, we have to create it. If there is going to be mercy, we have to provide it. We stop being children waiting for a father to fix things. The invention of God was a brilliant, necessary chapter in the human story. But it's just that, a chapter. As we move forward, we carry with us the lessons we learned. The importance of hope, the power of community, and the drive to understand why things happen. But we can leave the supernatural baggage behind. We are walking out into a universe that is vast, ancient, and indifferent, but we aren't walking out alone. We have each other, and we have the incredible capacity of the human mind to find light in the dark. The God we were looking for was always just our own best qualities projected into the sky. It's time to bring those qualities back down to earth and use them to build a future based on reality, curiosity, and love. In the end, recognizing that God is a human invention doesn't mean we have to stop asking the big questions that led to that invention in the first place. It actually invites us to ask them more honestly. We can finally look at the history of our species and see ourselves for what we truly are: a group of clever, frightened, and remarkably creative primates who were trying to make sense of a silent world. We don't need to look at our ancestors with judgment for the stories they told. Those stories were the bridges that brought us to the modern age. But a bridge is something you use to get from one place to another, not a place where you stay forever. By letting go of the supernatural, we open up a space for a new kind of honesty, where we acknowledge that we are the ones holding the pen as we write the next chapter of the human experience. This journey from the many gods of the ancient world to the single gods of the Middle Ages, and finally to the scientific understanding of today, is a testament to our growth. It shows that our minds are not static, but are constantly evolving to better match the reality we live in. We are moving from a world of shadows and whispers into a world of light and data. But that doesn't mean the world has to lose its poetry. The poetry just changes its rhythm. Instead of singing hymns to a creator, we can sing songs of discovery, of resilience, and of the incredible luck we have to exist at all in such a vast and ancient universe. The story of who invented God is ultimately a story about the power of the human imagination and its ability to shape the world we see. As you finish this video, take a moment to look around at everything humans have built, both the physical cities and the invisible ideas that hold them together. We are a species capable of incredible things when we stop waiting for divine permission and start taking responsibility for our own progress. The silence of the universe isn't a void to be feared. It is a canvas upon which we can paint any future we want. We invented God to help us survive our childhood, but now that we are growing up, we can find the courage to stand on our own 2 feet. We are the creators, the storytellers, and the meaning makers. The God we were looking for has been right here all along, hidden within the potential of the human heart and the brilliance of the human mind.